Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors China webinar on designing your China roadmap. This is our first presentation for 2021, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So this webinar is for you if you are in one of these three categories: the newbies to China, the startups to China, and the experienced China hands. I'm going to explain a little bit what these three categories mean, but if you do fall into one of these three categories, please do type newbie, startup, or experienced in the chat section of your control panel. These webinar sessions are going to be a lot more fun if you guys interact with me. So let me know a little bit about your background. It helps to gear and steer the presentation in the right direction based on the people who have attended live today. So for me, the newbies to China are those of you that have either found an opportunity or are looking to understand what type of opportunities are existing in the Chinese market right now. And you're here today to gain a certain level of education on China to see how you are going to protect your business. For the startups in China, it's those of you that have either been transacting with China or actually have an entity in China. Usually I weigh it out as the startup phase of being between 1 to 3, 1 to 5 years. Generally speaking, for startups, your attention is predominantly on the core functions of your company. So if you're selling a product or selling a service, then it would be on sales, versus looking at all of the back-end operations you need to think about in order to be able to protect your business. And the experienced China hands are folks that are like me, have been in China for over 15 years. They pretty much know everything. But like me, when I attend other people's webinars, it's all about getting updates, ideas, fresh ideas on how to be able to expand and grow your business. So type in, who are you? Let me know a little bit. So Alvina is a startup. Linda is a newbie looking for the right entry point. Fantastic. Emilio, Garrett, Astrid, Sarah, Stefan, Tiffany, let me know who you are. All right. It always helps to understand. You just have to type in startup, newbie, experienced. That's all I need to know about you to progress. Not a lot of effort, guys. But you know, the interaction is the most fun when you're doing these type of webinar sessions. How the webinar works is I'm going to educate you today on the China roadmap methodology. I'm going to be giving you a lot of case studies and a lot of action points, which is the purpose of the handbook. If you have questions or comments, please don't be shy. All right. I want this to be 60 minutes of your valuable spend. So put questions, put comments into the question section of the control panel. Almost all of you actually posted a question in the registration form. Please ask those questions. They probably aren't all specific to the China roadmap, but still, I'd be happy to answer them. So insert them into the question section. On a technical basis, just know that we're using a GoToWebinar platform. I don't own GoToWebinar. I don't control it. I also don't control your Wi-Fi. So I know how things can get a bit frustrating if you lose connectivity or you lose the sound. If I am still running and still working, it means that it's on your end. So please check it out on your end. I cannot help you if I am presenting. If something happens on my end, which could possibly happen because I've got a lot of devices right now on the Wi-Fi system since we're on homeschooling, it usually takes about 30 seconds to 1 minute for me to log back in. So be patient. I will be coming back on to complete today's presentation. And remember, you always have the possibility to jump on a call with me or to review the webinar recording, which will be up on our YouTube channel. All right. The goal for me is to make sure that we get through all of your questions and comments that you've inserted during the Q&A. For those of you that don't know me, and there are a lot of names that I'm not familiar with today, which is fabulous, why am I able to help you? Well, first of all, my name's Christina. Christina Kohler-Colucci. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I have 17 years of on-the-ground experience, specifically in Shanghai. I've been living in Shanghai for 17 years, and I have only worked in the corporate services and compliance sector. My focus is 100% on inbound investment to China. So 100% of my clients are foreign investors that are going into China. In 17 years, I've worked with over 500 companies with their market entry advisory, whether that means implementing a structure or doing that from home, actually implementing that structure, and then focusing predominantly on growth, okay? The whole point of today's presentation is to show you the journey of what my clients have done. However, eliminating the obstacles that arise for the majority of my clients that haven't been on the roadmap, all right? So what is the roadmap? What is the China roadmap? Well, the China roadmap is a roadmap. It's your China journey, basically. And every single client I've had has had a very different journey, either because of the sector they are in or because of the type of leaders that they've had. The roadmap consists of 3 milestones. The first is evaluating the opportunity. The second is implementing something to develop your China business. And the third is to focus on growth. How are you going to grow your China business? In order to do that, there are 9 superpowers that I believe are vital to obtain and to continuously and consistently maintain over your China journey. So to start off with today's presentation, because this always gets people a little bit awakened, is going through case studies of what's gone wrong. So what are the problems if you don't follow the roadmap? The first case study I want to look at is an Austrian candy company that I met with in about 2005, 2006 in Shanghai, who told me that they had a 40-foot container of product on the waters arriving in Shanghai port within a few days. They were in Shanghai at that point in time to attend the Xiao exhibition, which is a very large food and beverage exhibition. And they were not exhibitors at this trade show. They were there just simply attending the trade show. When I started asking questions about the business model, the distributors, who's going to be receiving the products that are on the waters, who's the consignee of the products, they could not answer any of those questions. They did not even understand the trade flow. The goods were arriving in a couple of days in Shanghai, and they didn't even know what were the food and beverage requirements, i.e. that you need to have licenses. The company who's the consignee needs to have certain licenses to receive those goods, to be able to import those food and beverage items, or in this case, candies. They also needed to have labels in Chinese stuck on the packaging in order to be able to distribute and sell. And ultimately, the conclusion of their business trip was that upon arrival of the goods were then returned back to them in Austria, as they did not pass through the customs processes. They obviously didn't pass the quality control inspections, and labeling was never done. And ultimately, their feedback was, well, we thought we were extremely prepared. And this is where knowledge is power. And this is probably my biggest mantra in China. Educating yourselves and doing solid research is critical to entering the Chinese market. It is 2 fundamental parts to a successful market entry, okay? And obviously, the biggest question I get is, and this company said it to me too, is, Christina, we thought we were really prepared. We thought we were ready to attack the market, but we didn't know what to research for. We didn't know what knowledge level we had to have. But it also meant that they didn't have the right ecosystem, contacts, network in order to obtain that information. And that's what I'm going to educate you on today. The next case study is of a German lock company that used a distributor for a number of years, okay, double-digit number of years, to enter the Chinese market. And they signed an exclusivity deal with the one distributor who also knowingly registered their trademark in China in order to better facilitate their sales. As the company grew over time, the company wanted to go independent. So they wanted to take the distributor out of the supply chain. They realized now that the knowledge that they had gained over time, they could pretty much eliminate this distributor's commission and go save that, build up their own business and save costs and do it on their own. What was the conclusion? I said it earlier. They gave away their most important asset, which was their brand name. And the distributor owned it for the Chinese market. So what did that mean for the company? It meant that as they terminated the agreement with the distributor lost face. And as a consequence, they had leverage. And so they sold the trademark back to the company, but I call it as the termination compensation, but ultimately it was for an exorbitant price just so that the company could start it alone. Fundamental mistake. One of the key things that anybody has to do going into the Chinese market is to make a list of what their most valuable assets are and to make sure you keep control of that. And again, we'll go through a checklist in today's presentation. On a similar path related to trademarks is a consumer products company. They got the entire shipment blocked at customs upon export from all of their suppliers in China because they terminated a supplier agreement. The supplier lost face, registered their trademark in China, and registered it also at What happened in conclusion was that they fought the supplier because the supplier really did do it in bad faith. But for a period of 3 to 4 months, if their brand name was on the product or on the packaging, they could not ship it out. It was held up at customs. So one solution, if the brand name was not on the product, is that they used empty cartons like you see here on the screen to be able to ship out. Those products that had the brand name on it, nothing, they couldn't do anything. So the conclusion here is understanding, regardless of what business scope you have in China, realize that you have to protect your entire business. And the key thing is, make no assumptions, no fact. This company thought that there was no need to register their trademark in China because they were not selling in China. They were doing 100% export. But even if you are producing your products in China and you're putting your brand name on those products and those packaging, you are doing a certain level of activity in China which requires you to register your trademark and to protect it. The key thing is protecting it. The next aspect, the next case study is paying attention to all aspects of the business, or have somebody or have people build an ecosystem of people who can help you to analyze and protect your business. In this case study, I want to look at an Australian leather producer who established a joint venture in northern China. And after 3 years of establishment, they approached us to do a health check and internal audit to answer one of the most all-important questions, which was, why were they not growing? A lot of issues were found during this health check. The first one being that the financial management reports were sent from China in Chinese, but nobody in Australia asked or questioned to have them in English, which meant that nobody in Australia read them. Nobody proactively asked to sit with the accountant and explain the financial statements. All they understood was the bottom line item, no profit. Monthly transfers were discovered from the local JV partner, so from the JV entity, to his brother for no reason at all, amounting to over 50,000 renminbi per month. Calculate that over 3 years. The brother was not employed by the company, but as nobody was checking anything, the JV partner just did it. In addition, they were formulating a joint venture, and as part of the negotiation, it was decided at that point that all be owned by the JV, so by this entity that has these two partners, and that included the trademark of the Australian company. As you can imagine, with a lot of, I've just only highlighted 3 things that caught our attention during this health check. There were numerous more, but it gives you an understanding of how important it is to pay attention to whatever business model you are creating in the Chinese market. Naturally, the marriage ended in divorce, and the cost to the company, including the investment capital, 3 years of loss, it ultimately left an extremely bad taste in their mouth about China. And they haven't been back since, which is a pity, because in their sector, it's booming. Okay, so what are we covering today? Obviously, for the majority of you that are on here, we're talking about international expansion into China, all right? And the goal that I hope that you will obtain from today's presentation and through this China roadmap is that you need to have a solid but flexible strategy. You need to be able to implement and execute your business models and have backup business models. You need to have complete transparency over your business. You need to create an entity that gives you that transparency. You need to implement corporate governance and compliance to protect yourselves. You have to figure out ways where you can pick up on warning signs or red flags, and you will have immediate solutions on how to fix those. You need to be able to read, understand, and analyze your financial data. We want you to be able to avoid common obstacles. And ultimately, the ultimate growth that I want everyone to have in China is to focus on growth, not on the nitty-gritty details of the operations. That should be done at the beginning in a step-by-step phased process so that ultimately you as a decision maker have the ability to focus on growth and to sleep at night knowing that your business in China, which is not next to you, is safe and sound. So the solution that I'm offering to everyone is the China roadmap. We have devised this China roadmap for companies that are looking to grasp at the China opportunity, implement a compliant and safe structure, and grow the business exponentially, right? That's everybody's goal. Each company obviously has their own unique journey in China, but ultimately these milestones, these 3 milestones, and these 9 superpowers that I want everyone to obtain are the same. All right, so milestone number 1 is looking at opportunity. It's identifying whether China has an irresistible opportunity for you and your company. How do you identify that opportunity? What are the resources and investment needed to implement that opportunity? And how do you calculate that return on investment? Okay, and my feeling is in order to be able to evaluate an opportunity, you need to obtain these 3 superpowers: an education, research. You got to have data at your fingertips, and you have to put pen to paper and write a strategy and a budget. Okay. Two things that I want everybody to consider when going into the Chinese market. What are your time resources and what are your financial resources? Because people truly underestimate both of those. And that should be a part of your evaluation on the opportunities that exist in China. So superpower number one is education. It's building a knowledge base. Knowledge is power, and you want to build up a knowledge base where you can make appropriate decisions fast. Okay, so I'm going to give you a case study on this. A client of mine had a staff back in 2004, 2005, and they had only established their company within that year, and they had this first employee who was a finance person within their organization for about 9-10 months. And during those 9-10 months, the relationship was good, but she just kept asking for more because she was alone and she thought that she would get it, that she was such a valuable and vital asset to the company that, you know, she was just asking for more, asking for more, asking for more. And as the company realized at the 9-10th mark that they needed to add an additional person, they didn't want this negativity, or let me put it another way, they didn't want to get ganged up by 2 employees because they didn't want the 2 employees to just keep asking for more and more and more, cutting into their budget. So they decided, start fresh. She helped them get up, you know, get kicking within the 9-10 frame, but they were going to replace her and then add an individual. So they did what they have done always in their head office, and their head office was based in Hong Kong. So their process was on a Friday at 5:30 p.m. they called her in. They had a check ready with her termination compensation of what one would pay in Hong Kong. And what they did not expect was that she lost face, she argued, she cried, she negotiated for a much higher compensation, and she refused to give the keys back to the office and wanted the compensation to be paid in cash immediately. Because the company did this at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday night, you can imagine after that whole hoopla, come 7 p.m., they have nobody they can call. They can't call a labor lawyer. They can't call their payroll service provider. Everything's shut for the weekend, right? So what do? So the company goes ahead. They had one staff go ahead, go to the ATM machine and withdraw 70,000 renminbi in cash. Okay, brought it back, paid her the cash. You know, you're looking at this person counting it on the table, just a totally bad feeling in your stomach that you know you're not doing something right, which they weren't. And they were 70,000 renminbi out of budget. All right. What's the learning lesson here? They did not gain their China education. Before you take any action, if you have a little bit of doubt, you contact someone to get advice. Now, all of this might make sense to you, but once you're in China and your focus is predominantly on the core functions of your organization, anything else that is administrative goes to the back burner, okay? And when you're then in a rush to get things done, you don't ask for advice. You don't take 10, 15, 30 minutes out of your day to call somebody to gain that advice, all right? And this is common with many foreign investors in China. Don't, you know, also imagine that you're not there. So who does the actual termination? Are you going to do it over Zoom? Are you going to do it over WeChat? How are you going to actually initiate it? Building that knowledge level is critical, and there's knowledge that you have to learn in a variety of different areas in relation to building up your business. But there are thousands of service providers, all different ones, that are there to give you that knowledge, to advise you on what is the appropriate thing to do so that you can save money on your budget. All right, so where can you get your education? You can get your education from lawyers, right? Sign up to newsletters. They're free of charge. Sign up for webinars. This webinar is free of charge. There are lawyers, there are corporate service providers that are providing free information on a daily basis. You might not want to read that today, but save it in a folder so that you read it at a later date, okay? And my rule of thumb on education is don't read articles or publications that are over 12 months old because regulations change so frequently in China. So really look, if we're January 2021, you want to look at all publications posted in 2020. Prior to 2020 would probably be outdated. Go find your Chamber of Commerce in China. Memberships are between 5,000 and 10,000 renminbi for an annual membership. You get a bunch of newsletters with information in it. You get contacts to expand your ecosystem. You get tremendous amount of information for between 5,000 and 10,000 renminbi. You can also join your China Country Association, okay, where again, sign up for the newsletters free of charge. Join webinars, informational sessions. Currently, everything is online because of COVID, making it a lot easier to network and join and get information. The EU SME Center has just started at the end of Q4 2020 with their phase 4, so they're fully operational once again, and there are free research reports on their websites. So if you guys are looking, there was one question in the registration form about opportunities. Generally, opportunities are those research reports that are free of charge. Go on the EU SME Center and you'll see all the different types of sectors that are where you get this free data. And even if they do charge, they're charging for literally a nominal amount of around 50 euros to get free research reports, okay? Education is fundamental. So in your handbooks, guys, I want you to list 5 things that you're gonna do to educate yourselves. I mean, one thing that you've already done is you're attending this session, but figure out 5 other organizations or companies where you would love to be connected in order to get free information, newsletters, articles, free webinar, joining free webinar sessions, looking at the associations. Do you want to become a member? Evaluate that, okay? I want you in your handbooks to list out 5 action points. How are you going to educate yourself? You might want to add 1 law firm, 1 corporate services firm like myself. You might want to add a marketing firm, a digital marketing agency. You might want to add in there an HR specialist. You might want to add in there import-export agents that are foreign owned because they also publish free articles that might be specific to your industry and sector. So many avenues where you can educate yourself and where you can get up-to-date free information. If you've got any questions on that, type it into the question section and we'll hit that during the Q&A. The next superpower is research. I truly believe that nobody should be going into the Chinese market until they have actual data points at their fingertips. Now, this is a service that we don't provide in-house. We have a lot of partners that we collaborate with that can do these types of research studies. But research is something that is invaluable. It will give you a true reflection of the opportunities that exist in China and to what extent those opportunities exist. Research comes in a variety of forms. You don't have to do these comprehensive research studies, which is what the EU SME Center does. You don't have to do these comprehensive ones. You can pick and choose what you want. Do you want to look at market segmentation? Do you want to do product testing? Do you want to do advertising testing? Do you want to do satisfaction and loyalty analyses? Do you want to do brand awareness studies? Do you want to do a pricing research study? A competitor benchmarking study? So many types of research exist. Okay, now the issue currently is that none of you can go to China because the borders are shut, and none of you can do this research yourself. So just for your reference, there are companies out there that do it for a nominal fee. The assumption is that everything is expensive. It's not. And when you look at a study and you see the value it's going to bring you in terms of evaluating an opportunity and knowing what potential there is in a market, my God, guys, pay it, yeah? But what I want to emphasize here, and I will continue to emphasize this throughout today's presentation, education and research are continuous superpowers. It's not that you do it once and you say, well, I'm done. No, 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 no. You continue your education. I've been educating myself for 17 years after a lot of mistakes I did in my first 2, 3, 4, 5 years in China. Continuously educating myself and getting advice. Research. I do research every 2 years on my competitors, and I do a price benchmarking analysis. It's invaluable to me because then I can see where I am in the market. There are no formal research studies in the corporate services sector. So I do it on my own. I do it with 5, 6, 7 different competitors, and I do my own benchmarking. But I do it every 2 years, and it gives me invaluable data. There are so many ways also to do your methodology in terms of research, and you have to figure out what you want your provider to do for you, whether it's secondary research, surveys, focus groups, interviews, observations, experiments, field, there's so many different things that you can do. My husband works in the food and beverage sector in finance, and what he does, I mean, it's not even part of his job description, but every time we go in a supermarket, he is in the chocolates aisle and is investigating everything from placement of products to pricing, looking at competitors, just so that he gets a feel for the product and the jurisdiction that he's working in. Okay. So again, guys, take your handbook, jot down what data points do you have now to help you evaluate your opportunity. Is the one data point that you got an inquiry from a guy in China? That is a data point, right? Especially if an order has been placed. But what else do you have? And what action do you need to take in order to get more data to really evaluate the market? Evaluate what key research do you need to understand the market in your sector and with your products or services. Okay, understand all of that. All right. To give you an example, some of it you might be able to do yourself. If you're looking for brand awareness, go to bing.com. It's the Chinese search engine. Type in your brand name. What pops up? You might get a lot of surprises. All right. That's something very little that you can do behind your desk. So in your handbooks, again, under research, what data points do you have now? What data points do you need to truly make an evaluation? And if you are in the category where you have to convince board members or investors about taking this action to expand into China, then trust me, you're going to have to need a lot of data points in order to be able to convince them, right? Not just one. So you've got to have that understanding of what would be extremely important for you. Superpower number 3 is strategy. It is literally putting pen to paper, creating that business plan, creating that budget that you need to kick off the business, okay? And your strategy plan and your budget is what is going to convince board members, convince investors, or convince yourself about what you want to do in the Chinese market. And this is usually where hiccups occur, because a lot of people don't even want to put pen to paper, but you really should jot down, either in a PowerPoint format or whatever, your strategy. Okay, how are you going to implement your business? What is the best business model that is suitable for you? Now, just as a little bit of a free addition here, because a lot of people do get stuck on superpower number 3, is I've added key chapters to a business plan. What I think are the key chapters to a business plan. So company description, market analysis, organization and management, service or product, what are you offering? What are marketing and sales strategies? Funding request, what are your financial projections, which is the budget? And add anything else that's optional, like do you need licenses? Do you need Resumes. Usually the appendix is a great way to figure out what you're missing as well, in terms of information that you might need. Please know these business plans and budgets haphazardly and in just a few hours. Take your time. The best business plans and budgets are those where you are exchanging your thoughts and ideas with someone as a draft before then actually executing it and presenting it to board members or investors. Okay, make sure that you are bouncing your ideas and thought processes over with someone, and that you have someone good enough either within your organization or externally that can counter you in regards to all these various chapters that you have to create. When you are creating your business plans and your budgets, here's a really big tip. If your research highlights that there is such tremendous opportunity, please don't be so enthusiastic, because there are so many obstacles that, again, I'm going to try and help you avoid, but still there will be obstacles that arise that could never have been thought of, like COVID, where you might get very disappointing results. So you want to be able to have a flexible business plan, flexible budget, and you want to be conservative with it to allow you slack and wiggle room. Okay, start early developing these. Don't write it at the point that your first transaction is occurring. Do it over time and monitor, evaluate, and reforecast. That's obviously been something that we have focused on throughout 2020, but it is something that you should be doing even in a very good and successful year. So in your handbook, again, pen to paper, when you are doing your business plan and your budget, what have you completed? Okay, it would be good just to highlight from a chapter's perspective, what have you fulfilled in terms of setting up this business? Again, when I say setting up a business, I don't mean actually setting up an entity in China. It can also be just setting up this China business from your head office. All right, you need to have a business plan on that. And when you've evaluated what you've done, evaluate where do you still need help? And with whom can you collaborate with on this to get that help? Okay, so again, I'll just go back to the key chapters: company description, market analysis, organization and management, service or product, marketing, sales, funding request, financial projections, and then obviously everything else that comes after that. Okay, you cannot imagine the amount of people, leaders, entrepreneurs, managers that do not create business plans and budget. It is critical and fundamental for your China business. Okay, because I'll go back to what I said earlier on. You need to evaluate your time resource and your financial resource for the Chinese market. So this is milestone number 1. Once you have completed those 3 superpowers that, again, you're not doing them once and never doing them again. You've got to maintain momentum and continue your education. Always do research and always update and monitor your business plan and budget. Okay. Once you've done that, the question you need to raise, and obviously that will be done when you're speaking to your board, is, have you been able to evaluate the opportunity for China? All right. So if you have, then you go to the next step. And the next step after this is implementation. This is milestone number 2. And the biggest question that I get asked is, how do I begin? How do I begin the implementation? I have to even consider. So this whole milestone, we will be evaluating checklists that you have to go through. All right, and I've been feeding you these checklists. All right, so this should come a lot easier than you thought. But when you are implementing, the first thing that I think everybody needs, and I wish that I had developed that when I had gone in 2003, is having an ecosystem. You want to build an empowering business ecosystem of individuals who are going to support the development and growth of your business. Okay? This is all about networking, being referred to one person and the next person. They might not be the right person from the start, but you never know if they're going to become the right person later on. Make sure you have WeChat. If you don't have WeChat, try and subscribe to it. And if not, then figure out a database system where you keep the contacts of all people that you are meeting in association with China. You want to have an ecosystem of individuals that are in the legal profession, the accounting profession, the auditing profession, the HR profession, the marketing profession, the PR profession. I don't know if I said HR, but HR, logistics, warehousing, distribution. The list goes on. All right. You want to have, you meet people and you're like, my God, that'd be a fantastic candidate to have on staff in the future. My God, keep that, make that note, right? You guys need to have an ecosystem. Everybody needs help when they are going into a new jurisdiction. You cannot do it by yourself. Or let me phrase it in another way. You will not be successful if you do it by yourself. And the best is to create that ecosystem already at the point of milestone number 1 in the opportunity side, because you're going to be meeting people at that point, right? If you get inquiries from people, those are people that are potential sales customers, so they're in your ecosystem, all right? But you will need to have an ecosystem of people from a variety of different professions that are going to help you develop and grow your business, okay? So in the days of COVID, how are you going to meet or connect with people? Well, there are currently still virtual trade shows. Don't dismiss them. I know they are not as good as live trade shows by all means, but it is still an opportunity for networking and connection. LinkedIn, please don't underestimate LinkedIn, and don't underestimate that LinkedIn doesn't exist in China. It does, and Chinese people use it. So if you are looking for, I don't know, I'm legal, let's say legal professionals, corporate service professionals, accounting professionals, type that in, right? That you're looking for an accounting professional in China. You'll see what pops up, right? Or if you're looking for a distributor in food and beverage, look that up, okay? Use LinkedIn as a source, especially with COVID, to connect and start relationships with people. If you've got WeChat, really join some of the mini programs, join some of the Chamber of Commerce mini chats, mini programs, because those are really, really useful. Join association networking events. Now, like I said, that's a little bit hard to do now with COVID, but in live events are starting up slowly. Don't be shy, go around. Something that fascinates me, and if you've been to China, then you'll realize this, is that name cards plus WeChat are fundamental business tool, right? Everybody passes out a name card. Nobody cares about being spammed. So if you want to go into China and you want to create a network and ecosystem, pass out your name cards, guys. Don't get this fear of getting spammed. There are always clauses for unsubscription or replying to someone saying, please unsubscribe me, but build your network. And when you get emails and newsletters, don't just delete, look at them. Could they be of use to you at some point? You never know. Save data. You never know when you're going to look back on it. At moments for me, like during the Christmas holidays, I went through my emails, and I do have a folder with things I just on a daily basis didn't have time to look at. And I spent Christmas looking over those and deleting as I went and saving those that I thought would be critical for me, my company, my staff at a later stage. So build this ecosystem. Please don't be shy. Meet people, network with them. They may not be useful to you right now, but they could be useful to you later on. So what I would like all of you to do, because maybe some of you don't even realize this, is I want you to analyze who is in your ecosystem. Who can help me today that's in my list, right? If you don't even have access to that knowledge level, look at the name cards you've collected over the years, and hopefully you've kept them, and see who's in the list. And then follow up with that on LinkedIn. Now, I get it. All of this is very tedious. Maybe you can hire an intern to help you do that. Maybe you can hire your personal assistant to help you do that. But you need to know who's in your ecosystem today, and in that ecosystem, who can help you, okay? Then you have to evaluate, based on that analysis, who do I still need to help me push this project forward, all right? Do you need people from logistics? Do you need people from any part of your supply chain? Do you need people? Do you need TP providers? TP providers are companies in China that help you to start your cross-border e-commerce. Do you need those, right? Analyze. So obviously you need your strategy and your business plan to know what you're planning on doing in China, to then realize, who do I need to help me to initiate that? All right, make that list. Again, use your handbooks, guys, to take these notes. And I hope you are taking notes on this, because these are all your action plans to get yourself forward. If you guys have WeChat, now that it is the new year, and in early February, it's going to be Chinese New Year, you have the ability to send out a broadcast message to all your WeChat connections to wish them a happy new year. How are you? How are things going? Could you remind me what you do? Here's what I do. Maybe there is synergy between our two companies. Let's chat, right? It's one message you have to draft that you can send out to your whole WeChat list in one go, easy peasy. And it helps you to refresh contacts, know if people are still within the same jobs, know if they're in new jobs, and how they might be able to help you. Okay, so please do that. Superpower number 5 is protection. Why should we protect ourselves? Well, because like anywhere else in the world, fraud exists in China. And we want to be able to protect our business. We want to be able to protect our startup costs, and we want to protect our mindset and sanity. So what I would love to know from you guys is, have you guys ever been frauded in China? And if you have, so if you haven't, you guys don't need to mention it, but for those of you that have, I would love to hear your stories. And maybe if you're willing, I'd share a couple here. But it'd be great to know if you have been frauded. And I will tell you why. Because in anybody's China journey, they have been defrauded at some point. I have been frauded by employees. I have been frauded by customers. I have been frauded by third-party providers. I've seen it all personally, and not to mention then with my clients. So it will happen. We all misplace trust and loyalty. We also sometimes don't have time to supervise and analyze those relationships. But there are ways where upfront we can protect ourselves. So this is the point of now the checklist. Here are 7 points that I've implemented, and I will give you a lot more later on. But I just want to go on with the story before I give you the full checklist, which is in your handbook, by the way. But there are so many things that you need to protect. You need to protect your intellectual property. So that's trademarks, patents, copyrights. You need to have corporate governance. Who are the decision makers? What powers of authority do they have over certain aspects of the business? For example, if you are negotiating sales, who has the final decision on providing discounts? Who has the final decision on final price? Who has the final decision on payment terms? There has to be operational guidelines and procedures and corporate governance within your organization so that not all of the liability falls on one person and then they are fired at the point where the business does not grow. All right. Due diligence procedures. Are you vetting all the partners that you're collaborating with? Are you asking for references? Are you just simply vetting their financial status? If you have an entity in China, who's using the company chops? Do you have a corporate governance guideline on that? System processes for trade transactions and service transactions. This is implemented regardless if you have an entity in China or not. Who's negotiating contracts? Who's making sure contracts are signed? Who's negotiating the terms and conditions in those contracts? Are you going to have a lawyer review those contracts? Are those contracts going to be under China law or your home jurisdiction law? Who's going to do the invoicing? You or finance? Who's going to control that the invoice gets out? Who's going to control that payment is received? System processes, operational guidelines, things that are not fun, but that you want to have so that as you grow your business, you provide these guidelines to new employees. They know exactly what they have to do, and you're not spending time on training or creating operational guidelines out of thin air. Putting pen to paper, again, critical. I know nobody wants to do this at the beginning because their focus is on sales and growing the business, but you can't grow the business if you don't have system processes, right? What is the rule about giving discounts? How much discount can you give? What's the rule about the payment terms? Are we going to have exceptions on the payment terms? What about inventory and warehousing? Who's going to check on the inventory? Are you going to take random stock checks? Is the logistics company, do they have a warehouse managing system where you can look at the inventory at any point in time and it's up to date at that point in time? And then so much more. I mean, there's so many other things that you have to think about, which is why I created the checklist for you guys. Superpower number 6. The other day, I was listening to a podcast about a totally different subject. I'm trying to lose weight. I've gained weight over lockdown. And one comment made by the nutritionist was, it's all good and great to have lists like this about how to protect yourself and your business, but you also have to walk the talk, right? You actually have to implement. Like I said earlier, knowledge is power. There's no point to that knowledge if you don't actually implement it, okay? So superpower 5 is making a list of all of the most valuable assets and guidelines that you need to create, but then it's implementing those system processes, okay? It's creating and implementing internal operational guidelines and management directives. It's doing proactively health checks and internal audits every so often to make sure that you're sleeping at night and you know the business is in compliance, especially if your focus is on growth. It's evaluating who you want to appoint in your corporate management and are they the right people. It's building your ecosystem and developing that and maintaining those relationships, right? Again, let's reemphasize, it's implementing those system processes. Knowledge is power, but it's really only power if you implement that knowledge, okay? You got to walk the talk. You can't just come up with ideologies and then never actually implement them, okay? So again, preemption by action is your best and least expensive form of protection. So I've made a checklist for you. This again is in your handbook. You guys are all on here because you're considering going into the Chinese market. So I want to know, out of all of these bullet points, what have you done? What's been your due diligence and protection system? Have you registered your brand name, your trademarks? Have you registered your domains in China? Have you done website development? Where is it being hosted? Is it hosted in China? Marketing material for China. Who's done it? Have you reviewed it with someone? Have you done product registrations? Do you know if you have to do product registrations? Have you vetted your partners? Do you have an actual background check document that your partners are the perfect partners to work with? Do you have operational guidelines and system processes about the trade transactions, the service transactions, discount policies, payment term policies, etc.? What are management directives? This is all column left. Column right will be specifically if you're looking at setting up an entity in China. So your checklist about the business scope, the capital investment, the term of validity, I'm going through the whole list here, but so many considerations, and I get that this is tedious, okay? But this is your checklist. It's a very short one compared to everything else that you guys should be doing. Contracts, I didn't even add contracts in here. Contract formulation. Who's going to draft them? Who's going to review them? Are they going to be bilingual? So many things to think about, okay? So this is all about the implementation of your China business, whether you are setting up an entity or whether you are actually doing it from home. I'm actually running out of time, guys, so I'm going to dash through milestone number 3. I've been so excited about this topic. Apologies. But ultimately, when you finish milestone 2, you're looking at, have you been able to implement your strategy successfully? And then we want to get you on to growth. So as you saw the case studies earlier on, the first thing about growth is the numbers. How can you know if your business is growing without looking at your financial statements, right? If you have your own company in China, or if you don't, are you checking the Chinese business numbers? Do you receive China monthly financial management reports? Are you receiving them in English? Do you question them? Do you understand them? If you don't have a company in China but are transacting with China, do you have separate revenue line items and cost line items and expense line items specific to the China business? The numbers are critical. I do not ever want to hear anybody in 2021 tell me, oh, I got financial management reports, but they were in Chinese. I couldn't read them. And you are the reactive one then. If you are leading an organization in China, you should be the proactive one and raise questions. And if nobody's answering you, okay, that's a red flag, which means you've got to take action and get those financial management reports translated. If you don't understand them, set up an appointment with your accountant, sit with them for 3 hours, a whole day if you must, to go through it line item by line item. In your handbook, I made a checklist for you, questions you should be raising regarding the numbers associated with the China business, okay? And I want you guys to be able to read financial management reports. If you can't and you're not a finance person, then take a course for non-finance individuals. There are plenty of them out there that are online. You don't have to take one specific in China. You should just take one to understand it and then go back and look at these reports, okay? You can take these non-finance manager programs that are just 1 day long, and you'll get an understanding of how to read a P&L, how to read a balance sheet, how to read a cash flow statement, okay? But please, 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 make sure that you can read the numbers. There is no way you can focus on growth or achieve growth as a milestone if you don't read the numbers, the actual true numbers of your business. No way. All right. Now, all of this might make sense to you guys, but for some reason, when people go into China, they lose that common sense. And because finance is not a priority, which it should be, they put it on a back burner. Once you have the numbers and you can read them, you have to use them. There's no point creating the numbers if you can't analyze them. The whole point of putting focus on the numbers is so that you can analyze that data to know, are you growing or are you not growing? Are you within budget? Are you not within budget? Do you need to save costs somewhere? Let's evaluate. All right. You have to analyze. And quite frankly, me being a leader, I don't analyze this by myself. I do it with my finance manager. Every single month, we have a routine schedule. She sends it to me by a certain date. I take 48 hours and then we make an appointment and we schedule a call. We always block 2 hours. Sometimes it just takes 30 minutes, but we do block 2 hours in case there are more critical decisions that I have to make at that point in time. Can't do it alone. Do it with your finance person. Be proactive in that regard. The superpower number 9 is focus. All right. When I started today's presentation, I was talking about newbies, startups, and experience. And I was saying that startups, generally, their focus is on the core business functions versus looking at the administrative. That's actually what I want. I actually want that to be a goal for everybody. I want your focus to be on the strategy and the current status of the company. But you can't have that focus, that 100% clear focus, without implementing everything I've just said. You simply cannot. Okay? Because I'll tell you my own experience. I arrived in China without a business plan, without a budget. Actually, we didn't even start creating that until 5 years in. And I spent 5 years with 60% of my time on HR issues. Can you imagine, for 5 years? So that just meant that the whole point of growth was unimaginable in 5 years. Didn't happen. I wasted 5 years, 5 years of cost, 5 years of investment capital, because I couldn't focus 100% on what the ultimate goal was, which was implementing that strategy and focusing on the current status to know in which direction we had to move in. I am the steerer of the ship. I need to tell my employees which way to go. I need to tell my employees if we have to terminate a client because they're just sucking us up dry without even paying us. I need to tell my team, right now we have to spend more on marketing. We're going to put more budget in marketing so we gain more traction and gain more clients. I am the steerer of the ship. You guys that are on here today are the steerers of your ship. You're on here because you want to learn about how to get into China. So you are the captain of your ship. Your focus can't be in the engine room. It has to be up top, looking at which direction you're going into. So you have to make sure that all of these administrative aspects of protecting your business, of looking at the numbers, of having that business plan, of continuously educating yourself and having that ecosystem, that's your role. You got to have all of that done so you can focus on the strategy. All right, and make decisions quickly, especially in such a fast-paced country like China. So, are you focusing 100% on the strategy and growth of your organization? I can't answer that question. You guys are the only ones who can answer it. So again, let's recap a little bit the roadmap. 3 milestones: opportunity, implementation, and growth. 9 superpowers: education, research, strategy and budget, ecosystem, protection, implementing system processes, numbers, analysis, and focus. Guys, before we start the Q&A, I would love to know what are your key takeaways from today. Even if you just give me one, I would love to know what your main takeaway was. And the final page on your handbook is actually your action plan. So you have all these action plans for each superpower, but I would love to know what is your overall action plan in relation to developing your China roadmap, developing your China business. And again, your handbook is unique to you, right? It's your own analysis in terms of how you're going to design that roadmap. Everybody's will look different. But just for me, I would love to know what your one key takeaway was from today's session. And then don't forget to add what your overall action plans will be from the handbook. How Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, or how I can help you, is that I can help you with network introductions, again, with education advisory, market research, business plan validation, and budget validation, trademark registrations, incorporation, and then obviously services all related to implementation and growth. And guys, also, just on the next slide, if you want to have just a 15-minute game plan session to talk about your roadmap, please, I'd be happy to. In the chat section, I already put 3 ways of reaching out to me. I'm going to put in my diary link, which is you can set up a meeting in my diary directly. And I've set it up yesterday, so there will be slots available. But I'm happy to have that discussion with you, to have that 15-minute game plan session. So we're going to get started on the questions. The takeaway from Alvina was to focus and make actions. From Linda, I love it. She forgot to send out a Happy New Year message to all her WeChat contacts. So that's going to be her new action plan. But let's get going on some of the questions that popped up. So Alvina said, apparently they did not do any preparation before they went to China, in my opinion, but they said they were, oh, it's a phrase that you were saying, Alvina. Yeah, so the first case study I said, they thought they were prepared because they thought they'd done the right research. And again, you only know what you know, right? You don't necessarily know what things to research. But hopefully today I've prepared you guys in regards to what research you should be looking at. Linda was asking, can you recommend a digital marketing agency for skincare products? Linda, I can refer you to a lot of digital marketing agencies. Whether they are specific to skincare, I could not tell you, but you can probably check that out on their website. Linda, if you could send me an email with that question, then I can give you the names of 4 to 5 different digital marketing agencies that are consumer product related. And then you can reach out to them in terms of their experiences, and definitely ask for references, please, regarding that. All right, there's no more questions in. But you guys, if you still have questions, get them away. Again, 15-minute game plan session, more than welcome to talk with you. Happy to do so. Just book an appointment directly in my diary. And again, I'll help you to become a captain of your ship and get you on the right direction in regards to the China business. And if you want to connect with me on WeChat, so we've got a China Roadmap community on WeChat. In the chat box, I gave you my WeChat ID, which is KNCOLUCCIA. Just type in, connect with me. Type in you want to join the China Roadmap. I will ask you for a bit of background on what you do, what's your company. I'm trying to avoid that service providers get in there and sell stuff, because I really just want it to be a community, a safe community where people really ask questions and not feel like they're being sold to. So go ahead and just add me on WeChat. And then, are you excited about our upcoming webinar series? So for those of you that are new to my webinars, every single month I do a webinar series, and I'm very excited for our Q1 webinar series. Jan 25 to 29, we're going to be doing a webinar series on your branding strategy. I've got 3 wonderful guest speakers, one of whom is actually my client, Matt, who's going to be talking to me. He has a design studio. He's going to be talking all about storytelling and how to create a story around your brand and your product. I've got a guest speaker who's going to be talking about the top digital marketing strategies for 2021. I have another speaker who's going to be talking about the 5 top trends for e-commerce. And then you're going to be hearing from me twice in that week, one about brand protection, specifically about actually how to go about it in much greater detail, and also about creating your brand strategy for 2021. So an actual coaching session on how to, from everything we've learned from the first 4 days, how to put pen to paper and create that strategy. So that's already up on our website, woodburnglobal.com/events. Please go ahead and register, free of charge. And a great way to meet 3 fabulous providers that are not in my sphere, but are more in the branding sphere and marketing and e-commerce. So definitely sign up for those. February, we'll talk about market entry. And in March, we have setting up a company in China. So stay tuned for those 2. But I hope you guys all enjoyed today's session. I hope I excited you for 2021 about China, because I'm very passionate about it. It's a new year, trying to get myself over COVID, period. And hopefully it will be for everyone an absolutely successful year in terms of your roadmap into China. And just don't forget, you know, I'm part of your ecosystem now. Chatting for 15 minutes is never going to kill me. So I'm happy to be able to guide you or steer you a little bit if you need it. Join our webinars. They are all complimentary, and it's a great way for you also to build your ecosystem and meet new guest speakers as well. I want to thank everyone for joining me today, and I wish you a fantastic rest of the week. Take care and goodbye.